Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Will you please honor our nation's flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Council Laurie.
Here.
Council Martin.
Here.
Council Mendonça.
Here.
Council Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Council Nguyen.
Here.
Council Elliott.
Here.
Council Kennedy.
Here.
Council Leahy.
Here.
9 yeas.
Thank you. At this time, I'd recognize Council Mercy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for 3 people, 2 of which serve the community in their own very special way. First, Mary Moran Muldoon, a lifelong resident of the city of Lowell, cherished wife of Frank Muldoon, whom she celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary last year. Mary attended the Immaculate Conception Grammar School and graduated from Lowell High School, class of 1957, where she was a girl officer. She was a communicant of the Immaculate Conception Church. Mary had worked for St. John's Hospital in the pathology department, worked in the dental field for 15 years, and became a stewardess for American Airlines. Mary had many pleasures like dancing, but her greatest pleasure was shopping for underprivileged children at Christmas time, making sure no child was without a gift. For that alone, I was happy to call her my friend. Besides her devoted husband, Frank, she is survived by her daughters, Wendy and Tiffany. She is also survived by her brothers, Gerald Moran and former Chelmsford Selectman Tom Moran. She was a remarkable lady who truly will be missed by all that knew her. Our sympathy to her family, relatives, and her many friends. And secondly, I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for Mogadish Sunny Kazanjian. He was the beloved husband of Margie Kazanjian and a lifelong resident of the city of Lowell, having received his early education at the Moody School and was a graduate of Lowell High School class of 1950. Sonny enlisted in the United States Army in 1952 and was a corporal with the Transportation Army Reserve Ordnance Company until his honorable discharge in 1954. He received the Korean Service Medal and 2 Bronze Stars and the United Nations Service Medal and the National Defense Service Medal. Along with his family, Sonny opened Kazanjian's Garage on Dutton Street in 1951, where they proudly served the local community for over 60 years. Sonny was always there to lend a helping hand to anyone who needed it. He was respectful towards others and was greatly respected in return. Sonny was 1 in a million, a kind, generous, and selfless man who will always be remembered for his incredible work ethics, dedication to the community, and devotion to his family, especially his beloved wife, Margie. Besides his loving wife, he is survived by 3 sons, Michael, former city councilor Alan Kazanjian, and John, and his daughter Mary Beth, and his 11 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. We offer our sympathy to his family, relatives, and many friends. He will be truly missed. And lastly, the students at the Stocklosa Middle School, through their teacher, asked if I could offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for Milikai Sa. He was one of their classmates who died over the weekend, and he will be truly missed. And I don't want to leave anybody out, but for all those loved ones who have died during the week, we offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for everyone as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. If you'd all please rise in a moment of silence in Docking Chambers. Thank you. First, we have on the agenda, under Mayor's business, a citation for the 40th anniversary of the Pawtuckettville Citizens Council. I have, on behalf of the City Council, a citation to read now. Be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts extends its deepest congratulations to the Pawtuckettville Citizens Council as they celebrate 40 years of informing and advocating for the residents of Pawtuckettville. As their bylaws state, the purpose of the council is to further the well-being and interests of the residents of Pawtuckettville and to keep residents apprised of local issues which affect the community of Lowell as a whole. The group has lived up to that promise, from standing up against the proposed Route 213 expressway project of the mid-1970s to pushing for flood controls and advocating for the historic Pawtucket Dam today. And the entire city honors the Pawtuckettville Citizens Council and members past and present for their dedication to their neighborhood and their city, given this 5th day of March 2013. And I'll present this to the council president, Deb Forgione.
I'm just going to say a few words before we have Angelina Kosmosky and her daughter speak. Angelina Kosmosky is one of the founders of the Pawtuckettville Citizen Council, and we are so lucky to still have her active. And when I say active, I mean active. To this day, she is fully engaged in still the issues that affect Pawtuckettville. And I just wanted to say just a few words. Thank you so much for this honor. We appreciate it. And I just wanted to say that what makes this worthy is that we have met for over 40 years, and that's through every decade, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the millennium, into the 2010. And anyone here knows for each decade it has its challenges. We have survived counselors, city managers, department heads, police chiefs, and we still, to this day, 40 years later, meet the first Monday of every month. We've maintained this organization through the hard work and determination of a whole neighborhood called Pawtuckettville. Pawtuckettville is one of the 9 defined and established neighborhoods in Lowell. We're a proud neighborhood full of caring, active residents, and the award is welcomed by all. And I'd like to have Angelina Kosmosky and Karen Kosmosky say a few words.
To thank everybody. Good evening. On behalf of my mother, Angelina Kosmosky, I would like to thank the Lowell City Council and Pawtuckettville Citizens Council for honoring my father, John Kosmosky, who founded the Pawtuckettville Citizens Council 40 years ago. My dad cared deeply about the city of Lowell, especially Pawtuckettville, where he was born and lived his entire life. So it was no surprising. He was the pioneer, the first Citizens Council there. In the beginning, he and my mother, we would go door to door, talking to the Pawtuckettville neighbors about the issues that mostly affected them. When the Church of Nazarene generously gave the group the use of the hall to hold the meetings, and the Pawtuckettville Citizens Council really grew and flourished. The Pawtuckettville Citizens Council accomplished a lot of these early years. My dad was particularly gratified that the group fought and stopped the building of a 213 highway, which would have destroyed many Pawtuckettville homes in the process of building. My dad would be thrilled to see the Pawtuckettville Citizens Council continue to do the great work in the community 40 years later. And now all the neighbors in Lowell have a Citizens Council to address the concerns of their own neighborhoods. Again, thank you for all this honor for my dad. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to say thank you to everybody. I appreciate everything you're doing and the honor for my husband. I can't get up, so I'm going to have to.
Thank you very much. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You did a tremendous job in that citation. I'm very, very proud. It was an honor and a pleasure for Councilor Elliott and I, along with my colleagues on the City Council, to support and bring a motion forward to reflect and congratulate the Pawtucketville Citizens Council on celebration of your 40th anniversary. This honor today says a lot about not only the neighborhood, I can't compete with the siren. I know my voice is carries, but not that loud.
Don't sell yourself short now, Councilor.
This honor today says a lot about not only the neighborhood, but the good people who kept this council, this group together for so many years. John and Angelina Kosmowski, Vito Yancey, to Al Hebert and Ray Willett, to Deb Fergione, Dick Souza, many, many more, and our esteemed colleague to my right, Councilor Joe Mendonça, worked tirelessly to make that neighborhood a beautiful God's country place to live. It speaks to the love of not just the neighborhood, but the concerns for the people who live there. It says, your problems and concerns are our problems and concerns, not just for today, but for 40 years and counting. So we, this council, say to your neighborhood council, thank you for helping us in unity to serve you better. And I want to leave a footnote here. If there are any other neighborhood groups nearing an anniversary, please let us know, because this is not just about one neighborhood, it's about all neighborhoods. But today, we congratulate the Pawtucketville Citizen Council, and I'm very proud, as we all are proud, of all the people who work each and every day to make their neighborhood shine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree completely. It's amazing 40 years and the integrity that this organization brings to the city, and that they have still survived. They're still strong, maybe stronger than they were when they first started out. I mean, I've been a proud member for 18 years. I've served on the executive board as well, along with Councilman Mendonça. And I tell you, if you want to learn about city government, this is the place to start. You learn about not only your neighborhood, but how government affects your neighborhood. And what's most fascinating is that nobody gets paid. And you spend hundreds, and I say hundreds of hours of the year, not just at meetings, but researching, getting involved, listening to neighbors, canvassing the neighborhoods. And I think Pawtucketville is the place that it is today, in large part, not because of councilors or manager or elected officials, but because of this neighborhood, and I think other neighborhoods are the same. So I want to thank them, and without them, we can't be everywhere all the time. And neighborhood groups are the eyes and ears, and they really do the yeoman's share of the work to protect the neighborhoods and to make Lowell the place that it is. So congratulations, and it was a good citation. Thank you.
Councilman Mendonça.
Yeah, I'll just throw a few more names out there that I remember, having kept the Pawtucketville Citizens Council active over the years. When I started, there was Gail Bartlett. Before that, I know that she's passed away since, Ann Welcome. We honor her at Regatta Field. There was also Artie Burnham, who's also passed away, and Jerry Frechette, who's currently on our planning board, Dan Squalia, and Dick Carvel, and I believe others have been mentioned. There were other people that were involved before I got involved. I simply don't know their names, so I apologize in advance for not recognizing them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, and I didn't want to slight Councilor Elliott. I'm sorry. I meant to include you as well.
No, you didn't
I'm
at all.
sorry.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the work that you do. A motion to accept and place on file. So moved by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilman Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a communication from the Ghanaian community of Greater Lowell to address the city council to invite them to their upcoming Independence Day celebration. I heard from members of the Ghanaian community who said actually that they can't be here tonight, but we are in fact having a flag raising on Saturday morning, so we invite the public to attend. Motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. On the city clerk's portion of the agenda, we have minutes of the city council meeting February 26th. City council meeting of special meeting for the city manager February 26th for acceptance. So moved by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Under unfinished business, we have a loan order.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask for a
Yes,
suspension of the rules?
Councilor
please?
Laurie.
I'd like to ask for a suspension of rules.
Motion to suspend the rules for the purpose of,
Actually, we have a couple of items on the agenda. We have people here tonight. Item number 9, under communications, the introduction of the 2 new assistant city solicitors, and also number 29, I have a motion in asking that we adopt a resolution for Verizon Repair Center.
sure, motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. We have under agenda item 29, motion by Councilor Laurie, request the city council adopt resolution relating to the maintaining Verizon Repair Center and innovative technology jobs in Massachusetts and reconsider moving jobs out of the Commonwealth.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I speak, we do have a couple of people who asked to speak tonight, if they could address the council.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Jeff Wilson.
If you'd please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Wilson, 67 Hank Street, 26-year Verizon employee. I've been a member of 2321 for 10 years. I now work in Boston as a central office technician for Verizon. I started out my career in the repair center that they had in North Andover. They also had repair centers in Andover and Tewksbury. And also they have one in Springfield. They're proposing closing the Andover Center right now and Springfield and moving that work to Rhode Island. This would be very devastating to a lot of families. They would have to pick up and drive probably upwards of 150, 200 miles just to get to work, or maybe even move. Just a little bit on my career. I worked in the repair center for about 10 years, and I had to take a job in Boston to further my career as a technician because there weren't any opportunities up here. And now I take a bus. I live in the Belvedere section of Lowell. Take a bus down to the train station. I take the train to work every day, and then I walk the rest of the way from North Station to Government Center, where my office is now. Under what Verizon is proposing, they may indeed even move my work location. Not really sure, but it may possibly go to Rhode Island, which would be devastating to me, being a citizen of Lowell. So I just wanted to speak in favor of this motion because we need to keep the jobs, good paying jobs that Verizon provides in this state. And also not to offshore any more work. These people, I worked provisioning circuits for their DSL service. And already quite a bit of the work that they have has been sent to places like the Philippines, India, also parts of Mexico, and many other areas. But all this work, there's been a tremendous amount of work lost. I don't know if you remember years ago, they used to have an office on Plain Street. They had the business office there, and they consolidated a whole bunch of offices and moved those into Andover. And now they're even proposing moving those people. So they just seem to be creating all kinds of chaos in the work area, and it's just not good for the working families of this area. We need to keep the jobs here. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Ed Starr.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Starr is a resident of the city of Lowell. He's the head of the local IBEW union, but he'd wish to speak, if it's okay.
I see no objections.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ed Stein. I'm the business manager of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, Local 2321. And I represent all the Verizon workers in 43 communities throughout the Merrimack Valley and North Shore. I'm honored to be here tonight in front of the City Council in such a great city, which at one time was the center of the Industrial Revolution, known as the City of Spindles, right? I'm a Verizon worker myself for 25 years and working for the members in this area for the last 7 years as their elected representative in negotiations. Unfortunately, we were told that Verizon does not make enough money in Massachusetts and must consolidate work centers. In my 25 years as a telephone worker, I've never seen any worker forced relocated over 80 miles from their current work location. And with the people that live in the valley and some in southern New Hampshire, a lot in Lowell, the commute for them would be 140 to 250 miles from where they live in the valley. Never mind the Springfield office that they want to close. That would be their daily commute. The job losses in Massachusetts for Verizon have been in the tens of thousands over the years. Technology has driven a lot of changes, but a majority of the new high-tech jobs of the future, such as FiOS work, which the workers in Andover and Springfield were being trained to do, is being done overseas in places like India, the Philippines, and Costa Rica. Though that FiOS repair center call, if your phone line goes out, if it's a copper line like out of Lowell, it goes into Andover, anywhere in Massachusetts. We were able to negotiate, 16 months I was away from home in negotiations, we were able to upgrade that center so they could handle the new work of the future, which is the FiOS calls. Keeping in mind that the city of Lowell is unfortunately being excluded by Verizon for building FiOS, fiber optic network in this community, I'd ask for your help today to adopt this resolution as a show of community support to keep Massachusetts jobs in Massachusetts, and also, more importantly, as a show of support for the 140 working families that Verizon has chosen to wreak havoc on their lives with this unconscionable business decision. And I will leave something for the council that in our advocacy, this isn't a union company thing. This is about the workers. And again, never seeing such a move like this. We've reached out to every level of government, and I have letters of support from every member of the Massachusetts delegation, federal delegation, on the House and in the Senate. I have a letter from the Secretary of State, a letter from the State Treasurer. We have a petition from the Senate, the Massachusetts Senate. The House of Representatives, they're working on theirs. There's quite a few more of them to add to the list. So they have a letter of support and solidarity for keeping these jobs in the Commonwealth. And the governor is going to be reaching out on this as well. So we've been going community by community, just it's a people issue. And we have a lot of workers that do live in the valley, in Lowell in particular. And we do have a work center in Lowell, which has, right now maybe 200 and upwards of 500 jobs total over the next year. What we'll have right in Lowell at the Crosspoint Towers. So I'd ask for your support in helping these working families.
Thank you, Mr. Starr.
Anthony Clayton.
Hi, thank you. My name is Anthony Clayton. I live at 42 Second Ave in Lowell, Mass, Pawtuckaville. I have 16 years as a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW Local 2321, and as a worker for the telephone company, now Verizon. I am here tonight to ask this council to consider adopting a resolution relating to maintaining Verizon Repair Center and innovative technology jobs in Massachusetts and reconsider moving jobs out of the Commonwealth. Although there have been consolidations and downsizing by Verizon throughout my career, never in my 16 years has Verizon ever moved workers out of state and over 80 miles from their previous work location. Every call center, every employee in all Verizon departments fear that at some point Verizon will eventually be moving their jobs next, all in an effort to force workers to quit. Just like the same decision that the 140 people in Andover and Springfield will be forced to make. I ask for your support tonight in adopting this resolution to help spread the message to all communities throughout the Commonwealth that Lowell, Massachusetts supports working families, and that we challenge Verizon to be a leader in innovative job growth and invest in people in our communities. Decision to relocate workers hundreds of miles from their homes is wrong, and I thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. That is our last speaker, Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to thank the speakers for coming forward tonight. And I'll be asking if we can, and I've sent the letters that he presented for the councilors to look at, if that could be part of the record. This basically comes down to its simplest forms, is to keep the jobs in Massachusetts. We're not talking about wages. We're basically talking about rental space here in Massachusetts, having these offices staffed in Massachusetts. You know, we all get a lot of calls here on the council about cable or the different types of cable. And as you heard tonight, Fios, they just haven't decided to invest in the city. We'd love to see them invest in the city. We'd love to see them invest in the state. But this petition tonight is just asking that we support the workers of Verizon, asking them to stay in-state and keeping the jobs here. In its simplest form, it's just asking that these individuals can make a living and support their families in Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to add, you know, my father was a member of this local and a central office technician, as was the same job the first speaker had. You know, so I'm fully supportive of this. I think there's been a lot of good jobs for, you know, high school graduates, and now you even need a college degree to get some of the jobs in, you know, the line jobs in Verizon. Unfortunately, you know, our requests to Verizon often fall on deaf ears. You know, in the Fios discussion being, you know, Exhibit A to that. But certainly we want to keep as many of these union jobs in Lowell, in Greater Lowell, in Massachusetts as we can. So appreciate the motion and the speakers coming down and fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you for coming in to speak. Next we have agenda item 9, communication, the introduction of 2 new assistant city solicitors, Kerry M. Regan and Gina M. Atwood. We have a communication from the city solicitor. I'm pleased to announce that Kerry Regan and Gina Atwood have joined the city's law department as assistant city solicitors. Kerry is a magna cum laude graduate of Georgetown University with a BA in English and is a graduate of Harvard Law School. She also holds an MA in English Literature from Indiana University. Kerry brings over a dozen years legal experience, mostly in the capacity of in-house counsel for a number of corporations, including Mattel Incorporated and Reebok. Gina is a cum laude graduate of University of Massachusetts Amherst with a BA in German language and literature and Spanish language and literature. She is a summa cum laude graduate of Tulane Law School, where she served as a senior editor of its Law Review. She brings over 10 years litigation experience at a nationally ranked firm of Goodwin Proctor, LLP, where she was a partner in their litigation department. So please join me in welcoming both the new city solicitors, assistant city solicitors, Kerry Regan and Gina Atwood. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. I'm Gina Atwood. I'm very pleased to be joining the city as an assistant city solicitor, and look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Kerry Regan, and as a resident of Lowell, I'm really honored to have the opportunity to serve the city, and I look forward to working with you.
Welcome to you. Thank you. It's a motion to accept and place on file, so moved by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Being slightly after 7 o'clock, we have a public hearing. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. In City Council ordinance, an ordinance amending the code of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 290 thereof entitled Zoning by extending existing NB zoning district to include 14 and 16 3rd Street in Lowell. I'd open it up at this point to those wishing to speak in favor. In favor. If you please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Peter Marlowe, 108 Norris Road in Tingsboro, Mass. And I am a lifelong resident. I grew up in Lowell, Christian Hill, attended Lowell schools. Can I give these out? Yeah. My partner, I grew up in Lowell, graduated from Lowell High School. My partner, David Deegan, grew up in Lowell, went to Lowell schools, and his brother is here, Dennis. We currently own the lot at 401 Bridge Street, which is the original Plunkett's Drugstore building area. The Plunkett's Drugstore building covered the entire lot. We also own 480 Bridge Street, which is where the Lowell precinct was at one time. It's a brick building behind the original Store 24. What we're currently proposing is we purchased the lot at 401 Bridge Street, but we couldn't get any parking requirements, and originally we were talking about leasing some space from the city. But now we've entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the city to purchase the vacant lot behind 401 Bridge Street, which is 14 and 16 3rd Street. In order to make it feasible and work, we requested a zoning change to neighborhood business so that we can construct a 4-unit apartment building on the 3rd Street property and have the parking in between the two buildings to service both buildings plus the building at 401 Bridge Street.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council? Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we didn't get into 7 o'clock yet and have the public hearing, we would have gone down under the manager's portion of the agenda, and we would have saw a communication from the planning board, which was the recommendation, a report and recommendation of the meeting that was held there. And at that time, people that spoke in opposition before the planning board, there were none. There was one person that spoke in favor, and the recommendation of the planning board, who, again, I will tell you, is much more knowledgeable than I am, and they said two things that will make my decision the way it is. The proposed zoning amendment will enable redevelopment of vacant property that is consistent with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. That is very important. And secondly, the board voted unanimously 5-0 in support of the motion. So having read that, I would move approval. Thank you.
Motion to approve by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Mendonça. On the motion, Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just looking at the map here. I believe this is the second piece of property that Mr. Marlowe has invested in the Bridge Street area. He owns a building a little farther up across the street, and I know he grew up in the Centerville section, and I'd just like to thank Mr. Marlowe for coming home and investing in that part of the city. It's just a great little area. It could be a great little area with the businesses down there, and to see this type of investment, I concur with Councilor Mauricio, and I just want to thank Mr. Marlowe for considering Lowell with the investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Newton?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a great change because of Lovellians who, despite the fact that he moved out of Lowell, still want to invest in Lowell, which is a great thing. And you have the endorsement of the planning board. And of course, if there's any opposition, you will have the Centerville Neighborhood Association with the leaders like Anne Marie Page would have been here. So Councilor Rita Mercier indicated quite eloquently with regard to the characters. I said in the Zoning Board of Appeal, what important to the neighborhood will be the character of that particular area, and this certainly will adequately address those issues and basically bringing tax bases to the city. So I think it's a great request, and that as a council, I would wholeheartedly support it.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Council Laurie.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Madonza.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Council Nuwan.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
Thank you. Returning to unfinished business, we have a loan order for the capital improvement bonds to borrow $2 million for the purpose of financing the purchase and installation of parking kiosks. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilman Donza, second by Councilor Martin. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council loan order to borrow $2 million for the purpose of financing the purchase and installation of parking kiosks. What's the wish of the council? Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few questions. I'm the one last week who asked that this be put off for 1 week in order that I could do a little bit more. And I just want to thank the councilors who were good enough to extend me that courtesy and give me another week to look at it. As it was last week, I was away from Friday afternoon until Monday night, and so I didn't get to look at the information until Tuesday. And I didn't have an opportunity to look at the Jeff Beck plan, and didn't really realize that I needed to look at the Jeff Beck plan. The information that I got on the parking spaces came from Mr. Cook of the Lowell plan in a conversation that I had had with him on the telephone on that morning. There was, you'll recall, there was a difference of opinion about whether or not parking spaces were to be included in the plan. And as a result of that, I called Mr. Cook again Wednesday morning, bright and early, to ask him why I had a disagreement on Tuesday evening. And he informed me that the difference was that the Jeff Spec plan does not call for kiosks and parking spaces, or it does have parking spaces probably throughout the document, but no parking meters or kiosks. When the plan was presented to us last week, I considered the plan to be not in keeping with the Jeff Spec plan, but rather to be a way to raise additional revenue for the city. And I noticed that Mr. Bakey has provided us with information from the Jeff Spec plan, and that we seem to be embracing that plan now. But after last Tuesday's meeting, I did have a chance to look at the Jeff Spec plan, and there is a sentence in there that I think Mr. Bakey has left out, which recommends that not 1 cent be spent in that area unless all the money is going to be invested, which would include the trolley system. And we aren't doing that at this time. So what is the reason for this? Is this just to raise additional revenue, or is it in keeping with the Jeff Speck plan?
Mr. Manager.
Well, I would, Counselor, I would argue that it is in keeping with the spec plan. We still, in fact, we had a meeting this morning with federal transportation officials regarding the trolley. I think, we buy into the ideas behind the spec plan, but that doesn't mean we necessarily buy into every aspect of it, and in terms of every small nuance. I think, though, in this particular case, Mr. Speck, my sense of Mr. Speck's opinion on this is that he felt that it's a road system that isn't appropriate for downtown Lowell, and he didn't want. It was his recommendation that no money be spent on it unless it was converted. And by converted, he certainly included the trolley and the parking and the landscaping, etc., and the bike lane. I think we're adhering to the vision that he produced by moving forward with this, and our purpose for doing this is several-fold. Doing it now rather than waiting for the trolley. One, we need parking in that area. The developments that have happened at Wanalancet, the developments that have happened with the some of the adjacent properties, the university's continued expansion and parking issues really has put a strain on the available parking in that area. And I think that will be mitigated by the addition of these new parking spaces. I think that it will change the use of that roadway from, as I've described it, more of a highway to more of an urban street. And so those are our primary reasons for doing this. Now, we could do all of that and not have kiosks, but I think there are two reasons for doing kiosks. The primary reason is that the use of paid parking spaces are a means of managing the parking so that you can ensure that there's the appropriate level of turnover so that the businesses can benefit from that. And there are costs that are incurred because of that, and the revenues that will be gained from this will pay for those costs, and they will also pay for future capital needs of the entire parking enterprise moving forward. So there's a lot of good reasons for doing this, and that's why we're bringing it forward.
Okay, and if I could, to the city solicitor, this vote tonight is for the loan order, so it's for the money. But this vote tonight does not allow for parking space to be put there, isn't that right? Wouldn't we have to change the parking ordinance? I think it's chapter 266 in order to do that?
Right.
To have that included on the list of places where we have needed parking.
Correct. Part of our discussion last week touched upon two different areas. I think the manager had mentioned that aspect, as well as the looking at the current price structure, and that might also need to be adjusted. But both of those things would end up being looked at and brought before the council.
Thank you. You know, Mr. Mayor, I think that the Lowell plan or whatever spent a lot of money. I was told $140,000, and I just qualify that because I think it was Mr. Cook that told me, on the Jeff Speck plan. And so, so if we spent that money, and if it's such a comprehensive plan, then I think we should be paying attention to it. But I think we have to either embrace the whole plan or not. I don't think you can do it piecemeal or pick the parts out of the plan that you like and then dismiss the others. And so my interpretation of Jeff Speck's recommendation for Father Morissette is either do it all or don't spend a penny. That said, I guess I would lean towards not doing it. However, I thought that Councilor Martin made a good point last week, in that by creating the parking spaces and having the kiosks, what you do, in effect, is to create more parking, more opportunities to park. So there'd be more empty spaces and places to park, so there's not gonna have people there all day. I thought that was a really good point, and that's a valid point for the whole thing. And so with that, I am more or less on board with most of the loan order. What I'm still troubled with is the Father Morissette corridor and putting the parking there. And we have 500 dorms that are opening up I think in September. And there are going to be changes up there that are going to change the situation a little bit. And I'm not so sure that it is prudent over the long term to have parking along that corridor without maybe waiting until some of those changes take place. That's just kind of how I feel about it. And I've had conversations with people that have office space up there. Those people would like the extra spaces. I think that it's all good. I'm prepared to vote for the loan order this evening, but when it comes time to amend the ordinance to allow parking on Father Morissette, I'm not sure that I'll be there at that time. Now, you know, I did the math last week, and so I know the votes are there anyways for this. And so, you know, my vote isn't all that important, but on this matter. But that's kind of where I am. I'm just not sure that we've thought through enough what we are doing by narrowing the Father Morissette Boulevard. If there was a motion to reduce the loan order this evening, then by the amount that would be spent on those extra parking spaces, and I'm not sure, I think I wrote down $525,000, but I'm not sure where I got that number last week, and the amount for new kiosks, I think, is $655,000, but that would include parking spaces and kiosks on the other street as well, wouldn't it, on Perkins and Hall and so forth. So that's where I am. I will support the loan order. I'm not so sure I'm going to be on board with the parking, and if there was a motion to reduce the loan order by the appropriate amount, then I would support that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Councilor Kennedy, I agree with the notion of the parking on Father Morissette Boulevard. How many kiosks, Mr. Manager, will go on Father Morissette Boulevard, approximately?
Mr. Troop, do you have that number off the top of your head?
Proposal is for 15 kiosks on Father Morissette.
15, so multiply that by the approximate number of 11.5.
I believe the total amount of spaces is 156.
156.
Right, but it's 15 times 11.5 for the calculation.
Okay. I agree that we need to update the kiosks downtown, and that makes some sense. So I do support part of the loan order. I have some reservations about Father Morissette Boulevard, Mr. Manager, and based on a number of factors that Councilor Kennedy mentioned, particularly 500 beds, but just in general, the traffic and the traffic patterns in that particular area. There is the arena. There's the ballpark in the summer. There's Lowell High School every single morning. And it had been a number of years since I'd been dropping my daughter off, so I actually spent some time looking at that intersection and looking at the traffic patterns. And I firmly believe that reducing that, Father Morissette Boulevard to one lane is going to increase safety issues. It may seem wide, but if you take one lane and put a bike lane in and parking on one side, that's really, in my opinion, it's going to make it very, very narrow. And maybe the traffic count suggests that it can handle it. But I tell you, I sat there for 45 minutes this morning before the rush to Lowell High and after. And I know that this information says there's been a reduction of some of the traffic since 2005 and earlier. But what I did notice, as we all know, people will find the path of least resistance when it comes to traffic. And what I did notice, and I was wondering, why is there so much traffic coming from the Cox Circle? Because people are coming over the bridge, and they're avoiding that intersection, and they're cutting through Perkins and Hall Street, and they're coming up through the Cox Circle to get their kids to school. Now, if you don't believe me, Mr. Manager, I encourage you to go and watch, because I was wondering, where is all this traffic coming from? I know that teachers and kids must be going into the Ayotte garage. So, but people coming out And interestingly enough, you're asking me, well, how do I know this? I actually recognized a couple of cars and parents that I knew, and I say, oh, their kids go to Lowell High School, and I know where they live. So, long story short, I also know right turn from Father Morissette Boulevard going to Lowell High School, there was almost a consistent pattern of drop-offs, and again, to avoid going to Lowell High School. So I think there's an awful lot of traffic. And now, I also noticed that during the day, it wasn't as heavy, but I think the boulevard was built to handle more traffic, just like highways aren't constantly filled with traffic. It's during peak periods. So I say putting a bike lane, and if there are parking spaces, there's going to be a lot of pedestrian traffic crossing the street back and forth. We all know everybody doesn't use sidewalks. More often than not, there's been motions by Council Mercer on jaywalking throughout the city. So I am concerned about the pedestrian safety of narrowing both of those lanes and the impact it's going to cause, whether it's during, arena events or, I can just imagine in the summer baseball events, and just generally there's a lot of traffic, a lot of confusion, and I do think it's a safety issue. I know we have to replace some of the other kiosks. I know there are some other parking areas in the city that would benefit from replacing the meters. I think those are a good idea, but my observations and just knowing what is going to take place in that particular corridor in the future, just reducing those lanes to one, putting bicycles and pedestrians is going to cause some problems. So I would make that motion to reduce that loan order, and I didn't do the math, but 11,500 times 15.
It's 172,500.
Thank you, Mayor.
You making the motion?
I would.
Motion by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Kennedy. On the motion, Councilor Mendonça, and then Councilor Laurie.
Well, one of the things that the Jeff Speck plan did say is don't spend money on restructuring the road until you have a final plan with the trolley, et cetera. Now, if I understand correctly, we're adding parking spaces and a bike lane, but all we're doing is restriping the roadway. We're not changing any curbing at this time or anything of that nature. Is that correct, through the mayor?
That is correct.
Okay. So, I certainly at least want to try. I know we need more parking in the area. This adds 150 spaces. The street will actually physically remain the same. It just restriped differently. As far as pedestrian, I think the plan said that the pedestrians will feel safer by having a row of parked cars between them and the traffic. Also, crossing that street will become a lot easier because now you're only crossing 2 lanes of traffic rather than the current 4. So anyone that's going across Father Morissette Boulevard in that area, which is the one beyond Arcan Drive out to the new bridge that's going to be in place soon, that section at least will be easier to cross, I think, with fewer travel lanes in place. I believe, so just restriping. Yeah, the lanes may wind a little bit when you have the left turn lanes, I believe, that are being created. So in that sense, I think it's worth trying and having the parking spaces created. If it does prove to be a problem, all we've done is restripe the roadway. We could revert back if we must. I personally don't think we will have to, because as the traffic numbers have already shown, we have more than ample capacity for the travel on that roadway at this time and for the foreseeable future. So I personally want to keep the loan order as is, create the spaces, and see what happens with the new spaces in place.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie, and then Councilor Leahy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, originally I had my hand up for the first part of the discussion. After last week, I did talk to a real estate agent who was in that building. And again, I've heard the need for kiosk to free up parking, as I think Councilor Kennedy said, Councilor Martin put it best, to free up parking. He's telling me he can't bring clients in till after 3 o'clock in the afternoon because there's no parking on that street, and it's a hardship for him. beyond that, as I said last week, I'll support this, and I know the administration wants to charge on game nights, but I'm also concerned about the residents in that area. Now, several months ago, I put in a motion to have residential parking on Riverwalk Way. I'd like to see, and I don't think I need a motion for this, if we can look into it, is a residential parking in that area. I don't think people who are paying real estate taxes for condos or who are renting apartments who are paying real estate taxes should come home at 6 o'clock and pay $10 to park outside their house. My guess would be if they have a sticker, they could park for nothing. And I think the kiosk may make it a little bit easier for them around Spinners games and games at the arena. But then again, I don't want them paying $5 or $10 to park outside their homes. A couple of months ago, and I also put in a motion that came back for Moody and Merrimack Street. My guess is once these kiosks goes in, the people parking there for free are going right over to Moody and Merrimack Street. So if we could look at, relook, we're in the manager's initiative anyway, so we're in the neighborhoods. But I'd like to see the residents protected if this does go through. As far as the traffic count, I don't have the stats in front of me, I don't know if Mr. Bakey can address that. There was a traffic count, I believe, that came with the original work. If you could address that.
Well, there have been 3 sets of daily traffic counts. That's the total trips on the roadway over the course of a 24-hour period. In 2005, there were about 13,000 vehicles using the road. In 2010, there were about 10,000, and currently there are about 9,000. So that is a pretty steady decline in spite of significant new development in the area in terms of vehicle trips on that particular road. There have been, since 2005, there have been about 190 new apartments built in the general vicinity. Lancet is actually at a higher occupancy rate than it was at the time, and they've redeveloped one additional building that was not redeveloped at the time. University has already added over 100 new beds to the dormitories on East Campus since 2005. So we've seen a lot of expansion in the area, but we have not seen an increase in traffic on Father Morissette Boulevard. And I think that speaks to part of the reason why the Jeff Speck report, but now we as well are recommending that there basically is, as Jeff Speck put it, surplus real estate there that can be put to higher and better use for the benefit of the city. And if I could, just for a moment, because there's been, I think, a lot of sort of confusion and speculation about what the Jeff Speck's downtown evolution plan says about Father Morissette Boulevard. And I just wanted to read exactly what it says, because I think that will probably be helpful in sort of clearing up the confusion. Councilor Kennedy was correct that early on in his discussion of Father Morissette Boulevard, he observes that it is unwise to spend, I think he makes a sort of a comment about not a penny of investment unless you're going to sort of do the whole project. But subsequent to that, at the very end of his discussion of Father Morissette, where he, after recognizing that his larger plan with trolleys and everything else is a fairly ambitious one, he says, "As noted, the above plans are based on the construction of a streetcar, and without one, significant investment in Father Morissette Boulevard is not recommended. However, given that it is currently oversized for its traffic, encourages speeding, and has roadway available for more productive uses, it is recommended that a restriping regime be implemented in conjunction with the other short-term reconfigurations presented above. Currently, the typical boulevard segment contains 2 24-foot wide halves, each of which holds 2 12-foot travel lanes plus turn lanes. Each of these halves should be restriped to contain an 11-foot driving lane, a 7-foot parking lane, and a 6-foot bike lane. The parking lanes would be available for use by the high school, overflow visitors to the arena, boarding house park, taking the pressure off the Ayat garage. Bike lanes would immediately introduce a key component of the bicycle network without having to wait for the construction of a streetcar. This restriping could be accomplished for the cost of paint alone without even requiring revised signals." So that is exactly what Jeff Speck is saying, and that is exactly consistent with what is proposed here. Now, obviously, there could be reason to agree or disagree with whether Jeff Speck has the correct recommendation, But there is no question what his recommendation actually is for this area.
Thank you for the clarification. Councilor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said, I'll support this, and talking to the businesses down in One Lancet who want us to free up space, and with the idea that the neighbors would have some type of parking, that's very good also. Just as a concern, we're voting on the money tonight, not so much the kiosk. As we move forward, if needed, well, I think it may be needed, could we get a report from the police department what they think about the safety down there?
Sure.
I think the police would probably, in my opinion, would be the best to do a study on if it's safe or not, and if the police came back with a positive recommendation, that would go a long way of getting my support for the boulevard. And if they came back, of course, and said no, that would, but I just ask if we could have some type of.
Sure. Mr. Manager?
Well, I agree with Councilor Mendonça. If the report came back and said it's not safe, we could always just cancel the program.
Right.
And I concur with Councilor, and I think that's a good idea. But instead of just haphazardly saying it's not working, I think a police report would probably, in my opinion, would be best.
Right.
Mr. Manager.
We can certainly have the police weigh in on this. And generally, in these matters, we rely more heavily on the traffic engineer.
That would be fine, too.
Okay.
That would be fine also. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager. When we approve a loan order, I suppose we got the bids last week or this week and we started looking at them.
Correct.
Do you borrow the whole 200 or do you just borrow up to what you need?
2 million.
We borrow up to what we need.
Okay.
Right. And then we'll
So
come back.
I just don't understand why we're gonna vote for a reduction if it's,
Right. Then,
it may be reduced anyways, right?
correct.
Okay.
What we would do is come in and rescind the amount that we would not borrow.
Okay, and if we had concerns, legitimate concerns about how many parking spaces are there, I'm sure you'd take our opinion under consideration and have someone take a good look at it, and if we needed to not have so many parking spaces there, we would just reduce them and open up
Correct.
spacing at the intersection, right?
What we'll do is we'll get a whole plan that shows where everything would be. We'd have the traffic engineer develop the plan of exactly where the spaces would be, where they would not be, and then with the turning, putting all the turning lanes and everything else. And as I said, we're open to bids, and we're still reviewing all of that. It appears that the $2 million is adequate, and we actually think we'll probably be able to. We need to get through the whole process, but we think we'll be able to come back and actually reduce that below the $2 million by rescinding a portion of it.
Okay, and then last week, we also just finally, we're gonna take a look at the number of kiosks that we need, because we possibly could upgrade them if we had a reduction in price. I mean, that's still an option also.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Martin and then Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am opposed to the motion to reduce the loan order. I did support the motion to delay for a week, and I did hear from a number of people, primarily business people in that neighborhood, not all of whom agree. So I do think there's going to be a little bit of trial and error to this, not so much on whether there are kiosks or not, but sort of how they're deployed. Is this a 30-minute area versus a 2-hour area, 4-hour area, overnight, no overnight? And so, but I think the need for the spaces is there, and for some sort of ability to turn them over is there. And I support the concept of the spec plan for Father Morissette Boulevard. Again, if that turns out not to work, I suppose those kiosks could be removed, redeployed somewhere else. I kind of agree with Councilor Mendonça. I am optimistic that it will work, and I think the addition of spaces in the neighborhood will be welcome, particularly there, because parking already takes place in the other places, just doesn't turn over. Here, we're actually adding capacity, which I think is important. So I'm going to vote against the motion that's on the floor now and support the original request.
Councilor Kennedy and then Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a point of information, Mr. Manager, the bids all came in last Thursday. right, or the response to the RFP, what was the range in those?
Well, we still need to, again, we still need to go through the whole review, but they range, because, and by that I mean looking at add-ons to some of these that we would go, but just in sort of base bids, they range from 1.5 to about 1.7.
Okay.
And again, we want to make sure that, the 2 million includes things other than just the kiosks, and we want to make sure that, if there are some add-ons that we wanted to make these more state-of-the-art, that we'd be able to do that.
Okay, all right. So the motion then, which is for to cut less than 200,000, would leave 1.8, which still exceeds the highest response to the RFP by $100,000. But what you would argue is you'd still like the extra money so that you have more leeway in shaping how the whole thing's done.
Well, shaping, there have been questions raised regarding the use of telephone technology, that people be able to, use their phones, and we have to understand whether these bids would include that type of technology, whether there's some other add-ons that would make these more longer term in terms of their usefulness.
Councilor Elliott?
Thank you. So wouldn't it make more sense if there are reservations, and a number of members have reservations whether this is going to work or not? I mean, you can't go ahead and say, let's try this, spend $172,500, realize it may not work, and then we've already spent the money, you've already gone out with the bid, with specifications to buy the entire amount of kiosks. You can't go out and say, well, it didn't work, let's put them in storage until, we may need them again, because we also learned that they only have a 5-year shelf life. So wouldn't it make sense to hold off? We're going to replace some of the older kiosks or meters and go on a trial basis and put meters in. We're not going to have to spend anything. Might take a little bit of time. Figure out if it's going to work or not, if there are safety issues, and it won't cost nearly as much, and then we won't have kiosks that may not be useful, or maybe they will. But just saying, well, I'm just going through with this, and if it doesn't work, well, we'll just take them out. I don't think that makes sense. We are going to have meters. We have been using them. And if it does work, then we go and make that investment. I just think that, it might make some sense to go that route rather than buy them, they're not working, and then we're stuck with them. Thank you.
Councilor Noon, and then Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mayor. Last meeting, we continued this matter to tonight. We asked for a report from our traffic engineering. We got somewhat specific report from Mr. Eric Abbey, who's indicated after going through all the intersection, all the street in the city of Lowell, indicated that this Father Morrison Boulevard traffic are no different or even less than certain street like Broadway, west of Fletcher, East Merrimack, west of High Street, and so on. So according to the report, indicated clearly that in 2005, you have listed 13,000, and currently it's reduced to traffic count is 9,000. So I think we have a traffic engineering department for a reason. Someone who has an expertise in that field and who give us report saying that based on my year of experience, this is report. This will not impact this area. And we all agree that this project, putting this kiosk and this additional parking space in this area, certainly provide more parking opportunity for business and resident in this area who said that they need more parking in this area. And Mr. Backey, in his report, also indicated that this certainly bring a link between the water, the area of the ballpark, and particularly soon to be 500 bed for the dorm, to the downtown, and make the link is more walkable, more friendly. You know, we either do something about it. We are here. We are here to help those business and residents in those areas who said they need more parking. And, you know, these loan orders of $2 million that the manager proposed, not just replace the kiosk, but provide more kiosks and more parking, address the need and concern of the resident. So I think we need to support this, and I will support it. I will not support reduction of the loan orders. Thank you.
Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, we're not voting on the areas that where they're going, and I can appreciate what Councilor Martin says. I've talked to companies who want them there. As we move forward into the next step, another thing we could do, I think there's 2 owners down there, maybe 3. We could always notify them and work with them. If they want some streets without kiosk, fine. If they want some with kiosk, I'm open to anything down there that would help the parking situation. As far as meters, I actually like meters. The problem is they don't take credit cards, they don't take dollar bills. And if we're gonna make the investment, I would say, you know, we talked about that last week. I guess people, I'm lucky I know how to turn on my phone now. But I guess some people can pay with their phones. If we're gonna do it, let's do it right. You want people to come into Lowell, if they don't have change, they have a dollar bill, they have a credit card, you know, let's do it that way. That was the only thing I'd have to say.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
We're voting on the original?
This is the motion to reduce by $172,500.
Councilor Laurie.
No.
Councilor Martin.
No.
Councilor Madonza.
No.
Councilor Mercia.
No.
Mayor Murphy.
No.
Councilor Nguyen.
No.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
No.
2 yeas.
Therefore, it returns to the original motion.
Move approval of the original motion.
Move for approval by
Second.
Councilor Mendoza, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Roll call, please.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Madonza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
No.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Thank you. Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Through you to the manager, we don't approve the final plan. Does it just come back to us as consideration?
Again, just very briefly, Councilor Kennedy raised a point. We will see an amended ordinance that will have to be voted on.
Oh, okay. All right.
for
So
parking.
Eric, the traffic engineer is gonna take a good look at that because it's a concern of all of ours and,
Correct.
okay, thank you.
Next, we have under the city manager, communication from city manager, responses to city council motions and requests. Any discussion? Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple here. One was on the snowmaking machine. I know the council was somewhat divided whether we should buy it or not. I think it would be a good opportunity to make the parks in this city 12-month parks. We'd have them year-round. I know we had 30 inches of snow recently, but for 3 or 4 weeks after Christmas, I think most of the hills in this city were bare on the weekends, and I'm just looking for something to give the families in this city an opportunity to do something on the weekend. And, you know, if there's sub shops or coffee shops in those areas, they're gonna do well. The one problem I did have with the response was just putting it at Shed Park. I think it would be great to have it Shed Park. You could actually, after talking to Tom Bellegarde, you could actually make the snow to get away from the trees. But I don't want to see it limited to Shed Park. I think there's other areas of cities in Centerville, if we do get it, in Pawtucket, we could find areas where we could actually use it and not limit it to just Shed Park. And I want to thank the administration into looking into the opportunity for the inspectional services and treasurers to kind of share that information and to make it a little bit easier to come in, get a permit, and leave. And I'll look forward to that report on from FEMA or any, the motion, the third motion was on how much money we've spent on snow removal and how much we could possibly get back from the state or federal government. And I know it probably wouldn't be until next fiscal year, but knowing we could offset some of that cost, it would probably go into the year's budget after that, 2014. Thank you, thank you for the feedback.
Thank you. Anyone else on that particular communication, the snow removal? The snowmaker, excuse me. The perpetual winter, the 24-month
Every time I bring it up, we get snow, so I mean.
At this time, Councilor Elliott?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, I wonder if I could request a suspension of the rules, the purpose being to take my motion on taxi cabs out of order.
We do just have a speaker, that's the purpose.
Right.
Motion to take out of order by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. We have a motion by Councilor Elliott. Request the city council discuss placing of meters in taxi cabs. Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Elliott.
There is someone registered to speak, Mr. Mayor, so I'd like to.
Mr. Clerk. We have a familiar face.
Jeff Wilson.
Jeff Wilson. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah. Hi, Jeff Wilson. I live at 67 Hank Street. I'm speaking to you on behalf of the Lowell Commission on Disabilities. I am a commission member. At our last month's meeting, we had discussed bringing a motion to the floor of the City Council regarding the issue of inconsistent fare pricing in the city. So that's why we're kind of talking about the possibility of meters in taxi cabs, just to try to get some more consistency in the fares throughout the city. As you all may well know, I take cabs quite frequently in this city. Take my family, out to dinner, or just anything that we do. If there's no buses running, we usually take a cab. Throughout my years here, I've lived here for about 11 years now, and there have been some tremendous differences in pricing, even though we do have ordinances with regards to how much cab companies can charge for a fare. Myself, just as a personal experience, I live out near the Fort Hill Park area, and a lot of times I will take a taxi to, say, for example, the train station. I've paid anywhere from $6.50 to about $7.80 just to get to the train station. I can also speak about an experience last Sunday, which was kind of comical in my mind, taking my daughter out for breakfast at the Owl, and I was charged by a company $7.50, and the Owl's closer than the train station. And I take taxi cabs in the Boston area. You don't pay extra to bring your children with you, and luckily I only have one kid, or I'd be broke. So, they only charge me $1, but there's a lot of people in this city have maybe 2 or 3 children that, their only form of transportation is taxis in this city. So that's a huge concern of mine. Another concern is for the taxi owners themselves. I've gotten word that there's a bargain now that has sprung up in town that I can go anywhere I want within the city limits, within the city of Lowell, for a grand total of $5, which I believe is a direct violation of the ordinance for taxi fares. In my 11 years here, I've also seen it when the gas prices have gone up over $4, and prices were just raised by companies to cover the cost of the higher gas, which I assumed would have to be brought before the city for an approval. I just couldn't believe that it was just arbitrarily raised. Another reason why I bring this forth to the council is just, I think that some of these ordinances should be relooked at. We have a lot of taxis. Again, speaking from personal experience with exhaust leaks, questionable safety, poorly tuned, not very clean. And I would like to maybe see if we can address some of these issues. But I think that, in my mind, that the ultimate solution to a lot of these problems, especially with the inconsistent fares in this city, would be that we take a good hard look at putting meters in cabs. So I appreciate your time, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. I cannot add much more than what Mr. Wilson presented. He brings valid concerns. It's not the first time. It's not that we've heard these concerns. And a number of years ago, we went through, something similar of charging practices. I have also heard that, some of the cab companies, their livery services, and then they end up just stopping and picking up passengers at will, parking at the train stations. And I remember this discussion because there is an insurance difference between taxi cab companies and the amount of insurance they have to carry versus, limousine or livery service. So, there is a taxi cab commission. There is an ordinance because of issues like this, particularly with exhaust in the cabs and the inconsistency. Metering, I know there will be a little bit of, there will be a cost to a meter, but at least the people that get in the cabs, and let's face it, I mean, people that take the cabs, they're struggling. They can't afford a car or insurance or all the other things, and it's a lot of money for them. So having a meter, I think, will put front and center what the cost is, how far they went, and provide a better service to those people that need it. So I think, Mr. Wilson raised a number of issues, cab companies from out of town saying you get somewhere for $5 or not. These things need to be taken a look at. So I was happy to bring the motion forward, and I think Mr. Wilson said it pretty well. Let's take a hard look at this and see if this is the best way. And we got to tighten up the regulations and enforce it. And I mean, that is the purpose of the taxi cab and livery commission. So I do know there's 2 members. It says there should be a department head and 2 residents. So, Mr. Manager, it looks like there's a vacancy on this commission. And I know they're supposed to meet on an ad hoc basis, but and it also says there's an office in City Hall.
There is an office. It's Henry's office.
It's Henry's office?
And Henry's our department head that's on it, and we have Jim Leary. We had another member who resigned, and that has been one of our commission appointments that we've really had a tough time getting someone to serve on. So we did explore at one point trying to branch out to another employee, but I think there's actually a prohibition on that. We were looking at that as an option, but we are looking to. Okay.
I think there might be someone.
We could probably.
Available.
We could do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can remember a long time ago that there was a city council subcommittee for taxi cabs. And I'm not sure that putting meters in the cabs is the best way to go in this city, that it works all that well, but certainly there's no reason why the vehicles can't have the rates or the zones and the rates displayed in the back of the cab so that people would know. And also, people have a right to be sure that the cab is going to be clean and safe when they get in it. What I would suggest for Mr. Wilson is that when you call for the cab, to ask what the fare is going to be first. I think generally they ask you where you're going to be picked up and where you're going to, and so they can easily calculate the rate, and so that then you know, at least before you've embarked, how much it's going to cost you when you get to the end. I thought I heard Mr. Wilson offer to volunteer, Mr. Manager, to be on that commission, and I would support that if he is willing to do that. I know that you've had a hard time finding people for certain boards, and so that sounds like a good idea to me. But I think that overall this is a good motion. I think that, you know, the taxi cab business is something that should not be neglected in this city. It's important for a good amount of the population. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilman Johnson?
Well, I assume there'll be some report on this, so, I mean, I don't understand all the issues involved, or what we can do for taxi cabs versus what we can do with livery services. So maybe there could be some comparison of the two, and what oversight we have over each type to let us know what we can do or what ordinance changes might allow us to do what we need to do.
Thank you. Council Mercy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just offer a suggestion: when there's a meter, or if there ever is a meter in a cab, do not take that cab to dinner and go over the Rourke Bridge at a certain time of traffic, because I wouldn't want to be paying that fare at the end of the trip.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Returning to the manager's portion of the agenda, communication from city manager, responses to city council motions and requests.
I believe.
Council Leahy and then Council Mercier.
Thank you. Through you, the manager. On my motion, I got a revised breakdown of the prices. So, and as I spoke to you today, if would really like to see this project done this July, if possible, with the budget. I'm glad that they're going to get a price on the rug, but I guess the only thing I just wanted to stress is, you know, whatever work's being done in the schools, I would like to see, you know, done in-house. I think that would be the best solution if we could. I don't know if the prices reflect that or not. So if you could just get me an answer on that, I'd appreciate it. And I had one other question on Councilor Lurie's about the sharing of tax information from office to office. Would you know, if you do go in to get a permit and all your taxes are paid up to date, do you still have to physically walk down to the treasurer's office and sign off? Is that what the report's saying, or? I mean, I think that's what we're trying to avoid. If you are paid up, you know, it doesn't sound like much, but it really is inconvenient to go there, then walk down and wait in line again, and then come back up and wait again. So that, I think that's what we're trying to avoid, so.
Right. We've at this point, yes, it's required. We've talked internally for quite some time on trying to use technology to avoid that by maybe sending a form down electronically, having it signed and sent back electronically. Unfortunately, the workflow in the treasurer's office is more dynamic. There's an awful lot of activity there. So the likelihood that you can pull somebody off to do something like that away from the window makes it difficult. But usually, there's no delay. The vast majority of these cases are somebody who owns one home, They look it up, they see they own one home, they see the taxes are paid, they get it signed, and they go back up. I'm open to suggestions to make it easier, but at this point, because there are several more complicated situations, really a signature is required. If you have any ideas on how we can make this work without somebody going up and down the stairs, I'm all for it.
But the clerk up in the inspector, in the department of, I can't think of it now, where you're going to get your permits, they can't just pull up your name and see that you're paid off and then just check on their computer that, yeah, so.
They can, and often what'll happen is they'll call down to the treasurer's office and say, so-and-so is coming down, and everything will be taken care of by the time the person comes down there. All they're getting is a signature.
Okay. It just really needs to be streamlined. We got to figure out a way that you don't have to go up and down. And I don't want to really get into the specifics, but sometimes it does personally take more time than you think. And when you're running down on your lunch hour and that's when most of the contractors are here. We're doing it when we're out picking up materials or on our lunch hour. And, you know, I've spoken to the manager about this. That's when we need to be fully staffed. You know, we have to stagger lunches here so we can, that's our busy time. So that's all. Sure.
Mr. Manager.
And to the councilor's last comment there, we do stagger. We don't send everyone all off at once, or even a majority of people. But the issue is pointed out in the report, is not unique to Lowell. This is a cumbersome process that it's put in to guarantee that, you know, people are up to date on their taxes before they can pull building permits. And we have had situations where things have slipped through the cracks, and you know, we want to prevent that. We will continue to work on this issue. We would like to find a solution to this, but it's not unique to the city of Lowell. It's sort of a problem everywhere. I've encountered it myself in other communities, so it's, but we will continue to work at it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercier? No? Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, just, I don't want to speak for Councilor Leahy, Mr. Mayor, but I think what he was saying is when you go in the office to get a permit, rather than to have to go around City Hall to get, to go to the treasurer's office, why couldn't the person where you're pulling the permit have like a read-only access to the treasurer so that they'd be looking at the same stuff that the people in the treasurer's office are going to look at? And then it saves them that trip. I think the whole idea behind this is just to make City Hall more user-friendly than maybe what it is right now.
They do have that capability, and they do use that. I'll give you an example of one way we considered making this more user-friendly. We considered putting forms online and have somebody who's thinking about pulling a permit fill out the form, a request form, send it in advance so that the treasurer's got it and signed off before somebody ever enters City Hall. The problem is, according to the folks in the inspectional services, it's unlikely that many contractors will be doing that on behalf of the owners themselves. So I wouldn't say there are roadblocks, but there are challenges all along the way to make it happen. To your particular point, they do upstairs. Take a look at that information. There are a significant minority of cases where it's much more complicated. Essentially what happens is there's a mini title search. And it takes somebody who is accustomed to looking at real estate records, somebody accustomed to maybe examining the nuances between ownership. For example, if I own a piece of property in the city under my own name, and I own another piece of property with my wife, you can't necessarily link those two. There's not common ownership. These are things that the treasurer's office are trained to look at, and not necessarily clerks and inspectional services.
Mr. Manager.
Again, that said, we will continue to work at trying to find a solution to this, so one way or the other.
Thank you. Any discussion, further discussion? Councilor Elliott?
I just want to follow up on my motion that when Mr. Wilson, or if Mr. Wilson is, this is in the taxi cab, that the commission meet and that we be notified, the council be notified. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any further discussion on the manager's communications? Entertain a motion to accept and place on file. So moved by Council Mercia, second by Council Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, just one more bit of communication, if I could, and I'm not sure whether this requires a suspension of the rules or not, but I have a communication I'd like to make to the council in verbal form, because I think it's important that the council be brought up to speed on a particular issue.
Motion to suspend the rules.
What's the purpose of the, you have to state the purpose.
It's a personnel matter involving the police department.
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to bring the council up to speed because this is certainly an important bit of information that I think the community needs to know about, and clearly the City Council needs to know about as well. But I've had communications with Superintendent LaValle over the last few days regarding his own plans for retirement, and he notified me. Obviously, he has been approaching the point of retirement for some time now, and he notified me recently of his intent to retire during this fiscal year, and he has indicated to me within the last day that he intends to retire within the next 30 days. So he will be retiring at the end of March. In the meantime, so I thought that the council should know that. That is obviously one of our key department heads here in the city. I will be moving forward to appoint an interim superintendent and then beginning the process of selecting a new superintendent and putting in place a system or a process to make that happen, to ensure that we get the best possible candidate for the job. So I just wanted to bring the council up to speed on that, and that's the extent of my additional communication.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to accept and place on file. So moved by Council Mercia, second by Council Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have a communication for the city manager. Request approval of out-of-state travel, 1 for the parking department and 3 for the Lowell Police Department. Motion to approve by Council Laurie, second by Council Leahy. Any discussion?
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Motion to take them all up at once.
Motion to take all at once and approve.
Right.
So moved by Council Mercia, second by Council Laurie. Roll call, please.
Council Laurie.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Mendonça.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Council Nguyen.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have a communication, report, and recommendation from the Planning Board regarding the proposed amendment extending the NB zoning district to include a portion of the parcel located at 14 and 16 3rd Street. Motion to accept by Council Kennedy, second by Council Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have an ordinance, quarterly traffic. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Mercia, second by Council Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council ordinance. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances for the City of Lowell, Massachusetts. The code with respect to Chapter 266 entitled Vehicles in Traffic. I'd entertain a motion to refer to a public hearing for March 19, 2013 at 7 p.m. So moved by Council Laurie, second by Council Mercia. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have an ordinance to amend zoning for 12 Weed Street to extend the TMU zone. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Mercia, second by Council Noon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council ordinance. An ordinance amending the code of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 290 thereof entitled Zoning by extending existing traditional mixed-use district, zoning district to include the entirety of 12 to 14 Weed Street in Lowell, which is presently zoned traditional neighborhood single family. Councilor Kennedy?
Refer to public hearing.
Motion to refer to the planning board for a report and recommendation and refer to a public hearing for April 9th, 2013 at 7 p.m. So moved by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Lori. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we take items 12 through 16, all of the reappointments by the city manager, all at once. If there's no objection.
Second.
Some actually don't require a roll call, but
Just
motion to take items 12 through 15, or 12 through 16 together by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Lori. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Motion to approve the appointments.
So moved.
So moved by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Lori. Roll call, please.
Council Lori.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Mendonça.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Council Nguyen.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have the reports, subcommittee reports. The Finance Subcommittee of March 5th, 2013. Councilman Mendonça.
Yes, the subcommittee met this evening to take up a motion that was referred to it, a motion by Councilor Elliott to review the personnel ordinance, which is Chapter 56 of our ordinances. We reviewed some of the things. The impetus for this was when we had contract negotiations with the auditor, some of the issues that came up because she was covered under this ordinance. So we were looking at the issue of automatic raises on an annual basis, also the sick leave buyback, and the severance portion of the ordinance. We've had a motion to refer the matter back to the city manager to propose changes to the ordinance. He had highlighted issues such as having appropriate grades defined based on the responsibility of the position and the experience. And so we referred to him to review the grid structure for those steps and tiers, and also to review and make a proposal on how to limit sick time buyback in the future, more specifically toward new employees rather than existing employees. Also present with us were Councilor Mercier, Councilor Nguyen, and Councilor Leahy. We recessed the meeting in order to get the information back from the manager as far as those proposals, so that we could review it further and then potentially bring it before the full council for the council's approval, if there are any changes proposed. That is the report of progress.
Thank you. Any discussion on the report? Entertain a motion to accept the report as report of progress. So moved by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Lori. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have a report for the Lowell Commission on Disability. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is from a couple of weeks ago, actually. The Lowell Commission on Disability met monthly, and a couple items that we wanted to bring forward. Number one certainly was a taxi cab issue that we spoke about. But two other issues, Mr. Manager. One was the closed captioning TV. Still no understanding when that's going to come in or when it's going to be activated or implemented. And as I know we received a message from you with the law department that there's, or maybe it was from the chairman, Mr. Lastman, that there's still some language, there's still a memo being worked on with this. And so there's been a little bit of frustration, Mr. Manager, quite frankly, and I understand because I've been on the commission just since, I think it was March, and I brought it forward at that meeting, and I reported back that this was moving forward and that it was essentially a done deal. But at the last meeting, they said this has been going on for a couple of years now, and so I don't know where it is. The commission doesn't know where it is, and they would like to know for a couple of reasons. Funding was set aside for it, and this was what they suggested and designated for not only the equipment, but also to hire someone to literally have to transcribe, I believe is the word, the meetings and just the city council meetings. So that's, would you have an update that I can bring back or get a report on this is the timing, this is when it's going to be implemented, and as well as the funding issue? You know, the $20,000 was given to the Lowell Commission on Disability, and their understanding was that was for fiscal year 12 last year, and there was, and they're going to get minutes, but they also thought, the commission thought there was $10,000 from the prior year, year 2011. That's when the commission and the fees were going to be allocated, and they don't know where that money went. I did communicate with the auditor, and she responded that that money no longer exists, naturally. But they wanted to know where it was and where it went. So at least those two issues. You can answer that right now? Okay.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you. Counselor, I'll give my best shot at answering those. As you point out, a couple of years back, the Commission on Disabilities raised an issue that they would like to, and they raised this to me in meetings that I held with them, and I know they brought it to they raised it with then Councilor Dakota, that the idea that it would be helpful in completing their mission to have resources available to take on various projects. And at the time, there were a number of projects that were identified, making certain facilities handicap accessible, perhaps some of the playgrounds of the city. Perhaps there were certain areas of the city that needed to be made more accessible, whether in pedestrian activity. There could be some educational programs and the possibility of closed captioning. So based upon that, we basically took an idea that's been used in other communities, including my experience in the neighboring community, where we allocated a portion of the handicap parking fines to the Commission on Disabilities. And so we included that within the budget, within the parking enterprise, that we allocate that money right over to activities that the Commission on Disabilities wants to take on. Activities, but also other expenses that they may incur. I know that they're doing the television program now on LTC, and there's a need to buy some hard drives, external hard drives, for some of their shows. I know that I believe the mayor was with me when we met with the Commission on Disabilities. It must have been just before you went on, where we went in and talked about a number of different issues, including the possibility of following up on the closed captioning. And at the time, the only community I believe that's been doing this is the town of Watertown.
Correct.
And I know that we got in touch with Watertown, and I believe someone from Watertown came up.
I was at that meeting, correct.
Okay. And my understanding is that there were a couple different options back at that time. One was having someone that would be here, this is where my mind is going to start to lose some of this. There were flaws with that process in some way, and I can't recall exactly what that was, but I know there was one option of heading down that way, and there was another one that you could use an off-site. I think it was the expense was the big problem with that would have drained much more than the amount of money that we had available. The other was to use an off-site service that would simply do an audio listening in and then transcribing. The problem with that is it became a cumbersome process for would become a cumbersome process for the council, and I guess for me as well, that we would have to identify ourselves each and every time we spoke so that they would know who was actually speaking. Since that time, those are the two original options, but since that time, my understanding is another solution has been found, and we will utilize LTC. To do this, and LTC will buy the necessary equipment and provide the service. And we are in the middle of renegotiating the LTC contract. In fact, I had a meeting just this morning on this, and we think we're very close. Once that, LTC has been reluctant to take on additional responsibilities with regards to this and the costs that they would have to incur or that we would have to transfer over until the contract, some of the contract issues have been resolved. We're very close to resolving that. I'm hoping we'll have that done within the next week or so, and that will then allow us to then contract with them, provide the closed captioning, and then we can pull the money from the parking enterprise for that purpose. So I know it's been a long road. Obviously, I was very supportive of the commission getting the funding, and that's why I brought forward the plan to take it out of the parking enterprise. I'd like to see this happen, but it's been a sort of a cumbersome process in getting it this far, but hopefully the light is at the end of the tunnel on that.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Moving forward, could you please communicate with me on these issues so I can keep the commission abreast of it? And this is the reason, I know you keep in touch with the chairman, but I think it's a better, first of all, I think that's why I'm here, to communicate with them and to the city council. But just to keep, the communication as clear as possible, rather than, I mean, there is some miscommunication on the board. So that will be helpful if you can keep me abreast of this issue, because they're very passionate. People on the commission who are deaf and people in the community are eager to see this, and I do think it's important. Understanding the contract issues. At least I can let them know what is happening, rather than, as you mentioned, your understanding and you're working with the law department. So I can just go back and say, this is what's happening, this is the status, this is the challenge that we're faced with now. Now we know, and it is coming, and I think they'll be appreciative of it. Secondly, there was an issue of interpreters. There were a couple of meetings that there were no interpreters available, and consequently two commission members did not attend, and because they would have no way of communicating. And that was, I think there's a little bit of confusion that the money set aside from the fines, handicap parking fines and others, was not going to be used for interpreters. That was something that just needed to be provided by law. Anyway, can you clarify that? Because now I believe the $20,000 that's set aside into a fund that the auditor set up is now going to be used to pay these interpreters.
I'll have to follow up on that one,
Okay.
Councilor. But I do recall I was included in some of that back and forth with members of the commission,
Right.
and they were having trouble with the state agency that provides the interpreters.
Right.
And my understanding is that it was finally resolved, and they actually have dates specified with interpreters assigned already for the remainder of this year.
Right.
I'll have to check on the funding, the actual funding. One way or another, they are required, and we will fund that.
So can I follow up from my own knowledge? When the state provides those interpreters, do they charge the city, or they do charge the city?
Yes.
Okay, so for a while, there was one of the women that was showing up, stopped showing up because she wasn't getting paid, I guess, the going rate nor the mileage.
Okay.
And the city was just paying a lower rate to this other woman, and she wasn't getting mileage, so she said, it's not worth it. Could you just give me a report on that, or an update
sure.
on why there was that change? Because, 2 meetings, then rightfully so, the members were upset.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. And that was it, unless Mr. Wilson can remember anything else. Those are the items to bring forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the report? Entertain a motion to accept the report as a report of progress. So moved by Council Lowry, seconded by Council Leahy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have
Mr.
general.
Mayor,
Yeah,
can I just
Councilor
make
Haley.
one more thing? I knew I was going to forget something.
Sure.
You mentioned, Mr. Manager, shattering barriers. It's on cable television. It's hosted by one of the members, and I just want to say that the commission does a fabulous job. Mr. Wilson operates the board. Another member of the commission operates the camera, and another member is the host. And I know you've been on it, Mr. Manager. I've been on it, and it's really it's such a well-done show, and it just shows people in the community that have disabilities, nothing's going to stop them, and they participate and get involved and bring forth some very good issues affecting the disability community. And I think it's a great service that they do. It shows involvement and very, very informative and educational. So I just want to add that. Thank you, Mayor, for giving me the extra time.
Thank you. Next, we have general petitions, 3 claims for property damage. Entertain a motion to refer to the Law Department for report and recommendation. So moved by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Leahy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Miscellaneous petition of George A. Ruiz requests an overhanging awning sign for Maria's Multi-Service located at 748 Lakeview Avenue, Lowell, Massachusetts. Entertain a motion to refer to the Property Department. So moved by Council Mercia, second by Council Noon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have motions.
Mr. Mayor, I believe
Councilor.
the petitioner is here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Mr. Ruiz.
Good evening. My name is Joe Ruiz. My wife and I own Maria Multi-Services, 748 Lakeview Avenue. We're right across the street from Eastern Bank. We've been in business for 12 years right now, and we're doing good. Thanks God. The city. We want to put a sign, owning type, and we were advised by the city clerk that we have to come in front of the council for to gain a permission, or what do you say? Yeah, to go through the process of what is needed. If we need insurance, we are insured, but what type of insurance? And I gave the city clerk the measurements of the sign and all that. No electricity involved. So.
Thank you, Mr. Ruiz. This will be referred to the proper department so that they can make
Yes,
a
sir.
recommendation. Thank you for your patience as well.
Okay.
Councilor Noon?
No, I was going to say that the proper department would be Department of Planning and Development, and they have assigned individuals, Rachel, forgot Rachel last name.
Jessica.
She's actually in charge of that.
That's right. Councilor Martin?
So just so Mr. Ruiz knows, somebody from the city will get in touch with
Get
him.
back in touch with you.
And then there'll be another vote the council will take. So we appreciate you coming down here tonight.
Thank you.
And you'll be hearing back from someone at City Hall.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you. Next, we have motions. Councilor Kennedy requests the city manager discuss and review any progress, initiatives, problems, or other pertinent issues regarding the water department. So, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, this is a set of 6 motions that were put over from last week from the Manager's Oversight Committee, which started at 5:30 but ended before these motions could be taken up. And just at the outset, for each of these motions, I considered them to be more or less informational motions that would be appropriate for the oversight meeting. They're not really, I guess, what you would call action motions. Nevertheless, the first one has to do with the water department, and it asks for any progress or initiatives or problems or whatever that occur in that department, in the water department. I guess specifically for me, and the reason that I put it on was 2 things. One is that I think that there should be some sort of a policy for scrap metal. I mean, I don't see that there's one in place, or at least I haven't got a communication that there's one in place, and I think that's important just to have because it's proper, but I also think that that people who have read that there's problems in the water department want to know what we're doing to address that scrap metal issue. And then the second item is the overall morale and any personnel problems in that department. And that's it, Mr. Manager. So if you want to give us a discussion or...
Sure. Let me speak about a number of items regarding the water department. Let me start with the scrap metal. Obviously, we all know about the scrap metal issue that was raised. It really came out of a trial that was held last late summer involving another water department employee, one water department employee was terminated a couple of years ago for stealing gasoline. And as a result of that trial, there was other information that came forward that, and there was quite a bit of talk after that, that Councilor Mercia brought forward allegations that, in fact, there had been thefts of scrap metal at the water department. This is still ongoing, this investigation. Following the trial and about the same time as Councilor Mercia brought in the motion, I referred this to the police department. The council's been brought up to speed on where that, to a great extent, they've been brought up to speed on where that investigation is. It is still ongoing. It has required quite a bit of work on the part of the police department, the detectives involved with this, to look at quite a number of documents over the period of those months, and also interview a number of people inside the city government, particularly in the water department and outside. So hopefully that is nearing an end, but it's still ongoing at this time. We don't have a policy per se regarding scrap metal. I know that's something that we've kind of talked about, and Councilor Kennedy and I actually talked about it earlier today. And it's a strange sort of a situation, because the policy would be essentially, I assume the policy that we'd be looking for would be essentially don't take scrap metal. We have the issue of what do we do with materials that belong to the city that we no longer need, scrap metal, equipment, furniture, and the like. That's all under the responsibility of the jurisdiction of the various departments. And they are advised on a regular basis of what the requirements are under Chapter 30B, the disposal of surplus materials. State law is very clear on how something has to be declared surplus, and therefore it's if it has any value, it's sold to the highest bidder, and so on. And scrap metal is something that is relatively small in value, and I'm not saying it doesn't have value, but in the scheme of things, it's not a high priority item like some of the other surplus materials that we might have from time to time. But they're supposed to abide by Chapter 30B, and they do that through the procurement office. I do have the purchasing agent working on some ideas of how we can formalize that process, since this seems to have become an issue. We're having trouble sort of stealing some ideas from some other communities on this, because everyone just sort of follows Chapter 30B. But we are, he has some experience in working at the T, where they did have a blanket sale of surplus of scrap metal that he's going to try to. He has been trying to, and he's going to try to put something together. The issue of what to do with employees to notify them is a little bit. I don't know if a policy regarding the taking of scrap metal. It's essentially what our issue is if they take scrap metal belongs to the city, they're stealing from the city. It's just like taking anything else. And so it's really, and one would hope, and maybe it's naivete on my part, but one would hope that they would know that stealing is wrong. There's laws against stealing. There's commandments against stealing. There's, it's improper. So I don't know if, it seems strange to just have something, well, don't take scrap metal. That's basically saying don't steal, don't break the law on that. What I have thought about, particularly after our conversation today, Councilor, is, perhaps what we need to do, we have sign-offs whenever anyone comes to work for the city of certain policies that have to adhere to, including the conflict of interest statute, which includes things like doing things for one's benefit, like stealing. But maybe what we need to do is put together so I've asked the HR department to start working on this, is to put together a code of conduct, which will include don't steal. Don't steal, don't do any number of other things that are improper. So that's what we're hoping to put in place within the next couple of few weeks, to sort of put this one to rest once and for all. Again, I think it's unfortunate that we have to reiterate that people shouldn't steal from the city, from their employer. But if that's what it has to take, then that's what we will That's what we will do. You know, so that's ongoing. With regards to employee morale up there, I have met with I do think that morale has taken a hit given the sort of the coverage that this has received. There are, for the most part, it comes down to a handful of employees that have broken into factions. That is getting to be a smaller problem because actually some of the people have decided to leave the water department because of this, and one is staying with the city, one is leaving the city, and actually there are other issues that came into play for them beyond just this, but we're in the process of filling those positions now, and hopefully the efforts that we're making to sort of put this all to rest will address that issue for us. In terms of the overall operation of the water department, I think that you know, other than this recent spate of issues that I think that have been to a large extent played up. I think there are issues that need to be addressed there, and that we're attempting to address those. Beyond that, I think it's been played up a bit more than necessary. I think the water department is doing a good job. We've had fewer water breaks this year than we've had in other years. They have still been problems. We had one in the middle of the recent snowstorm that was a problem. We had one out on Plain Street in the very cold temperatures that was a problem. But you know, employee morale aside, the employees got out there as quickly as they could, worked in very severe conditions, and fixed those water breaks very quickly. It's an aging system that requires constant or continued investment. We have been doing that. We've been adding some redundancy to the system. We've been upgrading the system. Actions have been taken by the water department management to help us save costs. They came forward, Mr. Lahiff came forward with a plan a couple of years ago to shut down a portion of the water department in the winter when water usage is way down, thereby saving us a considerable sum of money. We are continuing, as I said, to invest in the facility. We just brought online a new water tank that the council approved. We've finished another water main. We've replaced all of our large meters, which has resulted in an increase of over $500,000 in revenue. We've installed a new photovoltaic system that's going to save us about $80,000. We have a number of projects that we'd like to take on, including doing something with small meters, residential meters. That's a sizable cost, but it's in the long run, we think it will save the city money by being more accurate, but also helping us move to a more automated meter reading process that will be more efficient and more cost effective for us. We do have an issue with one of the lagoons that we need to replace out there, and we expect to be coming into the City Council with a plan to do something with that in the near future, because that is going to be a sizable cost, but in order to maintain the system, we think it's necessary to do that. The water enterprise is in good, healthy shape right now. We still have some of the lowest water rates in the state. So all in all, we've had these few issues that have come up that we take very seriously, but looking at it from the full perspective, the work is proceeding there. People are guaranteed good, clean water. We've received awards for our water, and it's being done in a way that's cost effective. Having said that, as I said, we're not resting on our laurels with that. We are continuing to look at ways that we need to invest. We're also looking at an assessment of the organization. Woodward and Curran, our consulting engineers, are here working with us on a total review of our organization and our operations with some recommendations for changes and improvements. And I think that's really all I have to say about the water department at this time.
Thank you. I would just add that I understand that people should realize that you shouldn't be stealing regarding the scrap metal, but evidently they don't. So I guess by policy, what I mean are procedures in place that would help to prevent that. There have been other departments right here in City Hall in recent years where there's been thefts, and procedures were put in place to make sure that that did not continue to occur. So I guess that's what I'd be looking for in terms of the scrap metal. As far as the personnel up there, you know, I think that the water department produces a very good product, and that overall as a department that it runs well. But, you know, I think that if, to say that the personnel issues have been overplayed in the paper, I'm not sure that you can say that in light of the fact that there's been a long-term police investigation, that there have been people arrested up there, and there have been issues that have come to light. I'm not sure you can say that's overplayed. And all would be looking to do, and I think the rest of this council would be looking to do, would be to calm those down and get that department so that it's all running smoothly and so that everybody's getting along and that the problems go away. And I've been looking for that for a long time. And so that's all.
Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, I asked for a report on proper certifications of people up at the plant. Can you tell me when I would get that? Just came to my attention that maybe not everyone has the proper certifications up there. And so I'll let you answer that question.
I don't recall that. I just went through the motions today, and I don't recall that motion.
Okay.
If that was a verbal motion, perhaps?
It was during one of the discussions, so if you...
We'll follow up with you on that.
Okay. And secondly, now, Councilor Kennedy mentioned some issues up there. Is the employee that was charged with intimidating a witness, is he back to work or coming back to work, or what's the status of that? Because I agree. I mean, there are some issues. Nobody should have to work under those conditions, and you know, that's something that I believe has to be dealt with. I mean, people may not like each other, they may have this or that, but when someone's trying to do the right thing, they should not have to worry about being intimidated. So, what is the status of that employee?
That employee has not come back, and he is still suspended without pay.
Without pay, okay. So when does that resolve? Following whatever?
Any prosecution.
Okay.
And if I may, Counselor, I couldn't agree with you more. That was a message I made very clear to the employees when I met with them recently, is that we expect full cooperation with anything that goes on up there.
Okay, and did you say that you got Woodward and Curran is looking at the operation up there? And what are they looking at?
Well, as part of their ongoing consulting work for us, they are looking at they're doing an organizational assessment, focusing on the roles and responsibilities of all staff with the goal of improving efficiency and ensuring that appropriate attention is given to asset management and maintenance. So they're looking at the operations, but they're also looking at how we're maintaining the facility and what needs to be done to put in place the proper, review the procedures that we use now and assess those.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have motion by Councilor Kennedy, request the city manager discuss and review any progress, initiatives, problems, or other pertinent issues regarding the parking department. Seconded by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, this one, I put this one on for last week basically because that was a department that had problems last year, and I wanted to know how those things are working out. But I guess specifically, if you could speak to the garages and the way they operate. Again, in a discussion that we've had recently, when I parked in a parking garage maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and when I tried to get out, I found that there were red cones there, and I couldn't get out without using a credit card. And I was with a car full of people, but nobody had a credit card that they could use. So all I could do was get out of the car and remove the cones and then drive out, which is what I did. But it shouldn't be that the garage is unmanned and that you can only take a credit card. Let me point out that it was the Saturday night of that big storm, and so it was my view that everybody should have been able to park in the garage for free anyways because we were under storm emergency. Some other people might wonder why I was out during a storm emergency, but nevertheless. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, was that with the large storm?
Yes.
Where the governor told people to stay in and off
No,
the
not
roads?
that one. It was
The parking garages are we've had a recent turnover. Let me just give some sort of some summary remarks, and then I'll get into the specifics of your case. The garages, as you know, have recently brought on a new management company. They now have Republic that is managing those as opposed to Central Parking. That was the low bid, and they came in with a great deal of experience, and the conversion has gone very well. Most of the 100% of all the applicants that came from Central were retained. Some chose not to stay on, and they obviously were not hired. We've also changed the security to U.S. security from Madison. They have really stepped up. And Madison did a great job for us, but U.S. security is doing some things a little bit differently, that focusing on customer service, but also we want to make sure that vandalism and theft elimination occurs. So we're utilizing a number of different techniques to try to get at that, including undercover security, and making sure that the garages are very safe for all of our users. We actually looked at some numbers today on that, and out of the literally tens of thousands of people that utilize those garages during the time Madison was here, and the U.S. security, as I say, is new. We've only had, I think it was 81 incidents of criminal activity in those garages, mostly motor vehicle break-ins that have occurred at a couple of the garages. So, I think things are going quite well on that front. Again, the revenues are trending above budget, what we had projected. Expenses are trending below. It's a good, healthy enterprise fund there as well. We do have issues with the garages that we're going to need to address, and we've been working with the university actually right now on having some of their engineering people assist us in evaluating the structures, and then from there we'll do the necessary engineering work. But we will need to invest some money in those. But all in all, parking is going quite well. We did have the incident last, I guess it was a little over a year ago, where we identified that a theft had occurred. We've had that one theft. We went back and looked at all the other records, and that appears to be the only one, certainly from the kiosks and the garages. Everything checks out on that. So out of the $12 million, and I know I've said this at the council, out of the $12 million that the parking operation had over that 2-year period of time, we had one theft of $35,000. And as soon as it was brought to our attention, we caught it as a result of using the reporting that these kiosks were designed to have. Unfortunately, I think as we all know, that reporting had not been taking place. That auditing had not been taking place. That's the full utilization of the kiosk. Mr. Troop, who was here earlier tonight, is doing that now on a daily basis. All the turn-ins are going in as well. Unfortunately, in this type of business, cash business, you are going to have, whether it be a parking operation or a bank or a retail operation, you're going to have thefts from time to time. It's a huge problem. But we have the systems in place now, and we've made those improvements. So out of the total operation, I think this is certainly it's not acceptable, but it's minor in comparison to the total amount that we've brought in. With regards to the garages and the situation you ran into, our garages are staffed 24/7. Republic is the attendant during the day hours up to a certain point in the night, and then the U.S. security does the patrolling, and they staff the garages on the off hours. Very late at night, there may not be someone right in the booth, but they are in the garage. They're in patrol around the garage, so there would be someone there if you need them. All the garages, including the AOT, have pay stations. You can use a credit card in the machine as you go out, but all of the garages have pay stations that take cash and credit.
All right. maybe they do, but what it was there was a sign up that said credit cards only, and there was nobody in the facility. That's where I would have gone. There was nobody there. And I was there for, it took a couple of minutes before we decided what to do. Right. And so, but there was nobody there in that garage.
Okay.
On that day. Now, again, it was a special night. It had been snowing. Maybe the person that was supposed to be there didn't show up or showed up late or something like that. But on that particular night, there was nobody there.
Okay, we'll follow up on that, but that's the standard, and there may be a case that, given the snow conditions that night, there was nobody else utilizing the garages, and the staff person that was there was dealing with another issue at one of the other garages and needed to go off to deal with another issue, but that's what we generally do.
Okay, but also the method of payment only that was available to us was only credit cards and nothing, you couldn't pay cash.
You could pay cash in the machine downstairs when you go in to get your car, but that's what most people do, in fact, is they don't use you pay on your way out. You get your ticket, you pay it with either cash or credit card, and you take the ticket back up to the station. But
okay, on that one, thank you. The only thing I would ask is, just as a little follow-up, is that last year during the parking department, one of the issues that came up was that although people had been trained on the software, nobody was using the software.
Right.
Now we have a new company in. What's the situation there? Are they using? I would hope they're using the software and that everybody's been trained.
yeah, the company is using it, but more importantly, the city staff is using it. As you recall, we filled a position for a business manager, and Mr. Troop himself utilizes the software. So it's used on a regular basis, and the reports are done daily, and they are able to there's a procedure in place for closely monitoring collections and deposits, and that all goes, materials that's turned in with the revenue to the treasurer's office.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding the parking department, several weeks ago, I put in for a report on the conditions of the garage. I was still waiting for that one.
As I said, the university is working with us on that, and that takes some time to do that. Mr. Herbert was working on that before he left, but now we have Lisa DeMeo as well as the engineering students from the university that are doing a summary report for that. That should be ready, I would say, within the next month.
Okay. The other thing you mentioned, the last company that had the contract was Madison.
Correct.
This time we gave the contract to?
U.S. Security.
Now, who's driving around at night? You just said there was two companies? One works during the day, one works...
Republic is the management company that operates the garages for us. But they, at night, when there's no one there, they turn over the sort of the oversight of the garages to U.S. Security, which has security 24/7. They always have people on in each garage 24/7.
So did they get the contract, U.S. Security?
U.S. Security did, yes.
Okay, I just thought maybe someone subcontracted it.
No. Republic's the manager, and U.S. Security is the security company. And this is the same system that was used before when it was Central and Madison. Okay. When Central would, at certain hours, Central would go off rather than, because this is a case where we pay for, we could have a Central employee there, or excuse me, a Republic employee there, but that would be additional cost for us. And there's, generally speaking, people aren't in the garages very few people are in the garages at 2 in the morning.
I was just concerned.
I know you
there
were
may
there
be
at
some-
2 in the morning, but
Fast Eddie got out.
we'll be sending a bill to kind of that.
But, no, I was just, when you mentioned two different companies, I was just concerned that maybe they subcontracted out. As long as it's the person that we contracted with, I'm fine. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Kennedy. Request the city manager discuss and review any progress, initiatives, problems, or other pertinent issues regarding the election commission. Seconded by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just you to the manager. Same thing on this one, I guess. I really just put this one on because we have the potential for 4 elections coming up. There are 2 vacancies, I believe, in the staff in that office, and I don't think that either one has been posted yet. And so what is the, or at least they weren't as of last week. And so what's the update on this?
Well, we only had 1 vacancy as of last week, and was posted either yesterday or today. I know, and since that time, towards the end of last week, we received another resignation. So that will be, so we do have that additional vacancy that we're looking to fill. So we're moving forward to do that. With regards to the overall operation of the election office, we all, the nature of any organization or the management of an organization is to address problems that come up. Last year, we did identify some problems in the election office that were of concern to us, which resulted in some staff changes there and some greater involvement by the city solicitor in the operation of the election office. I actually believe that last year, in the presidential election, given the extremely high turnout and the horror stories that we heard from cities like Lowell, across the Commonwealth and beyond, that we did quite well. We got more poll workers last year than we ever had before. We had better training, communications, but we also had the opportunity to identify issues that we wanted to improve upon even more. And I know that at the last council meeting, we had a report to the council, or 2 meetings ago, we had a report that of the action items that were being taken to ensure that things were even better this time, that we wouldn't have the problems that Councilor Nunn raised regarding people being bounced from the voting list, and that all active voters would be included. That we'd have poll workers that were properly trained, and in fact, we would not only train them with our own staff, but we would bring in people from the Secretary of State's office and from the voting machine company, that we would have people in place here during the election from the voting machine company, that we would offer, we would have a training manual that they would be able to carry with them, and they wouldn't just be dependent upon their memory of what took place at the training. So we're taking a number of different steps as a result of the election last year, which again, I think went very, very well, particularly given the circumstances in which we found ourselves. And this election, I anticipate, will be just as good, if not better, than that.
I think that it's probably true to say that there were other areas of the Commonwealth and places across the nation where things went, where they had far greater problems than what we had here. But it's not always best to compare yourself to the communities that are worst, where they didn't do as well. We had our share of problems as well. And what I would be looking for is to try to work on those and make sure that those don't occur. There certainly were, to say that it went well is only by comparison to those certain communities. I'm sure that there's a lot of communities in the Commonwealth and in the United States where it went better than the way it went here. But all I'd be looking for is just working on making sure that these elections that come up, which won't have the turnout that we had last November, but nevertheless, that it works out better. And that should give us, time to develop a pretty solid system over the next few elections. And I think that part of doing that is making sure that we're well-staffed. And so, for me, it's, being staffed up with everybody and having the people in place all goes along. If there's problems next time, we can't fall back on the excuse that, well, we were down personnel.
Well, no, Councilor, and I for a couple of points on that. One, I agree And that's why, in terms of the election, we wanted more poll workers than we've ever had before. Last time, and we were going to have that same this time. And when I say we did well, I don't want it to be seen as any complacency on our part that, well, we were better than others. We strive to always be the best. And when we see a problem that happens in the election office or any department, we're going to take actions and put in place the necessary steps to ensure that doesn't happen again and that we're even better. And I think that when I look at the election last time and compare it to the prior elections that we had managed over the last several years, I think we did very, very well compared to the prior elections. Again, we built upon where we were, and we made improvements, and we got better, and that was under very difficult circumstances given the turnout and the occurrences that took place right before the election with our staffing. We immediately took the steps to make sure that we had trained people in place here to help us get through that, and so we're going to build upon that and make it even better this time. So I'm sure there were places that were better than us. I know there were, but I will tell you that and it's my business to talk to other communities, and I can tell you that there were problems everywhere, of one sort or another. But we're not satisfied with just being better than some. We want to be better than everybody.
Any further discussion on this motion? Councilman Dancer?
I just thought that I would note that on our desk this evening was a newsletter from the Mass Municipal Association called The Beacon, and one of the articles in there was that the state auditor is calling for state funding of the Senate elections, and I thought, don't want to make a motion at this time, but I thought it might behoove the administration to maybe contact our state delegation in support of the assertion that this is a state mandate, and by law it should be at the expense of the state, not a burden to the communities, local communities. So maybe we can send a communication to our state delegation in support of this effort by the state auditor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Kennedy, request the city manager to discuss and review any progress, initiatives, problems, or other pertinent issues regarding development services. Second by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. The same thing on this issue, I guess. It's just, this is for developmental services. It's a department that in the recent past has come under some criticism. And I guess the issues that I would be interested in hearing about are whether or not we have everybody with the proper certifications at this point, or whether there's people that aren't certified, whether or not we can maybe make that department a little more friendly to people that come in to City Hall to visit that department. And then the other issue is, the third thing is, and this is anecdotal, but I think could be a problem. I got a call, well, I guess it was probably a week and a half ago now, from somebody that had a 6-family house that was owner-occupied. And that person had to have their units inspected. So they put forth, I think, $250. They sent in $250 to the city. But then they were told that the inspection would not take place for a couple of months because people were still being trained in order to do the inspection, which would then make me think that we don't. And I think that when we were deliberating about amending the ordinance for apartment inspections, one of the things that came up was whether or not we had sufficient manpower. But that would make me think that we don't have sufficient manpower. But what this person was saying is, why did they have to pay the $250 right away? And they were told that if they didn't, they were going to be fined. Why did they have to pay it right away? And then they're waiting 2 months, which is what they were told. It would take a couple of months. before they can have their units inspected.
Well, in terms of that, I'm going to have to check on that to
Okay.
see about that. You know, we do as we're going through this, and it is a new process for us. We brought forward this plan to the city council to move to this rather than the vacancy ordinance that had been in place before. And because we believe this is a better way of doing it, but it is placing a burden on our staffing as we ramp up. Now we're developing strategies to how to have the proper staff in place, whether that's additional staff or additional hours of staff. But right now it's more rolling out the program. We're literally just completed the second month of this program, so I think we need to be given a little bit of slack as we go through this. It was just adopted back at the late fall and early winter, and so we need to do that. But I'll check on that issue. With regards to the other aspects of inspectional services, as I think we all know, development services, inspectional services has been a problem issue here in the city for a very long time, including the issue of certified inspectors. We had inspectors that had gone without certification for years. We took action to terminate those people after they went a long period of time without even taking an exam. And that took place back in the 2006, 7, 8 period. We had some other issues there that we identified as a result of investigations that were conducted by the Inspector General's office and some other agencies that resulted in us doing a total reorganization and putting it under development services. Since that time, we've improved the staff. We have the highest rate of certification for building officials and sanitary code inspectors in the city's history. By what we've been able to review. At this point in time, we have one new building official who has been brought on that's been approved by the state and now is going through the certification process. But and that's one of our new inspectors that just came on within the last several months. State requires that they be certified within a certain period of time, just as they require teachers to go through be certified within a certain period of time, and other officials to be certified within a certain period of time. But they do require that they be approved by the state beforehand. And all of our inspectors were approved. All but one has been certified, and that one has not yet been certified is brand new. So unfortunately, the reality is that people don't get certified until they get a job. And then once you get them certified, then they might go off to somewhere else that pays more or is a different community or whatever the case may be. But in our case, we have that one that we have. But in terms of the overall operation, we've put in place also, since the reorganization, we put in place a vacant and foreclosed building registration ordinance that's collected over $500,000 in fine. So we have improved the overall operation of the permitting and code enforcement. That's saved more than $500,000 annually since 2010 through better revenue collection and reduced cost. We now have improved coordination between sanitary, building, and trades inspectors. We're doing much more in terms of record keeping than has ever been done before. We put in place the regionalization of sealers and weights and measures that saves us over $30,000 annually, and also has increased the number of devices that have been sealed. We've increased proactive code enforcement by 50% since 2010. Primarily, we're doing the certificate of inspection program for rental properties. This isn't our own vacancy, our own residential ordinance, but instead is the state-required certificate of inspection that the city, from what our records show, has never done. Every other community, we compare ourselves to other communities. That's one where we really were way behind. And through the reorganization, by putting the systems in place, we're now doing that. So development services is one that since 2010 is light years ahead of where it was prior to that in terms of its operation. And we're very pleased with that. And I think I've gotten a number of builders in the community and residents in the communities that have been thrilled with and I have the letters that they've sent on and communications with how things work now as opposed to how they used to work. There are people that don't like the way the new system works. They had a relationship with other inspectors in the past that they found to be a little bit more user-friendly. Our goal is to treat everyone the same and treat them all properly and with respect, and that's what we're doing at this point. But I'm very pleased with Development Services and the changes we've made since 2010.
Okay, thanks.
Council Lowry and then Council Martin. Oh, excuse me, Council Leahy.
Thank you. A quick note on the inspections for the multifamilies through you to the manager, which I had already passed along a couple of suggestions. People were just a little confused at what point they had to pay for their inspections because it's not actually on the form.
Right.
So I don't know if we're going to put that on there or not, because I would have thought you'd pay at the time of inspection. And then the other quick thing was if we were going to include a suggested list of items that they'll be looking for, that would help the...
We're following up on both of those suggestions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is about the staffing and development services. You mentioned there's a new, particularly with the building inspectors, because I know we've had people leave, and this issue about when they get certified, I think, has proven to be a challenge to keep people, to keep a full staff. So do we have a full complement at this point?
We do have a full complement at this point in time, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Kennedy. Request the city manager discuss and review any progress, initiatives, problems, or other pertinent issues regarding the Lowell Stat program. Seconded by Councilor Lowry. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the manager once again. You know, in the interest of time, it might be better to get a written report on this. Sure. I guess what it is for me is that for the short time that I've been here, Mr. Herbert was in charge of that program, and he spent most of his time either in human relations or over at the parking department, and then he left. And so I don't have any appreciation as to what the STAT program does for us. What is the benefit of that? So if we could get sort of a written report on that.
Happy to do that.
I would appreciate it.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Kennedy. Request the city manager to discuss and review any proposals for recruiting and appointing new members or reappointing existing members to the city's various boards and commissions. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is my last one, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Kennedy.
Well, in this motion, it's just, this is something that I brought up several times. I've had it on the agenda several times, and yet there's still continue to be vacancies. And it seems to me that maybe we could take a more aggressive approach towards recruiting people. And I would suggest, and we've talked about this recently, that maybe if you were to look into the neighborhood groups, I have to think that, you know, several of the neighborhood groups are very active. They've got a lot of active people, and I have to think that some of those people would have the time and be willing to serve on some of these boards. And I think that if you look at areas like that, then maybe, you know, that's where you have to go to recruit. I also think that our website doesn't help us at all, because it doesn't tell you with any certainty what vacancies there are, or what qualifications or what you would be looking for to serve on any board, and you know, so that would be helpful. And there are other communities in the Commonwealth where you can click on a link to find that out. And but those communities seem to have a cleaner website than what we have. And I understand that our website's being changed, and so maybe that will change as well. But You know, we've appointed, for instance, the Auditorium Board of Trustees. We have 3 new members on there. There are 2 holdovers that are experienced people. It would probably be a good idea to add the experienced people to the new members, but nevertheless, to ignore those, to keep those people on a holdover position when they're willing to serve. It seems to me that it's easy enough to either appoint or either reappoint them or appoint somebody new. But that's just one example. It just seems like it's taken a real long time. And I can understand that maybe maybe you don't have the pool of candidates who are interested in serving. But, and that's why, you know, I would be looking to see what you would do as far as recruiting for those boards and commissions.
Well, I think that, you know, this has been a problem, that not just in the city of Lowell, it's a problem in almost every community. Part of it turns into a political culture issue, but that, you know, the issue of civic engagement. And we went through a period of time, actually, when we got a number of people that applied for positions, and then that dropped off, and there's a number of possible reasons for that, but the important thing is we need to get more people involved. We have had neighborhood people serve. I've had a number of the neighborhood people serve on boards, and some still do, and some have gotten off. But we can certainly follow up on that. We're also reaching out to a number of the other, we try to work with a number of other institutions in the city that have people that might be interested in serving, including the University, the Community College, working with the Public Matters program, which is bringing new people in, the Sandbox Initiative. These are new people that are interested in getting involved in their community. We've worked with the other people in some of the other you know, sub-communities here in the city, the you know, ethnic communities, as well as the cultural community. And so we're reaching out and trying to get people involved, and we're going to continue to do that. But we have tried to step that up more within the last month or so to get more people, and certainly welcome any ideas that people have to do that.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie and then Councilor Elliott.
If we're having a hard time really reaching out, I would say, well, for the amount of money we have to spend, why don't we just take out an ad in the paper or on the radio stations? You know, the paper might be one alternative where if someone was looking to serve on the board, or 2, you could put the vacancies. It might have only one or 2. But I think taking an ad in the local newspaper or on the radio station to announce it, you may get some more feedback.
Yeah, in the past, you know, there used to be a time when you could get a story. People are more inclined to read stories than look at ads. But to date, we haven't.
Take it out on Sunday in the column.
There's only a certain group of people that read the column.
But no, but really, I think it's, you know, it's just one more avenue, and for the amount of money we would be spending, you know, an ad in the paper or on the radio stations might be worthwhile. Thank you.
Councilor Elliott.
Councilor Laurie raised the issue that I was going to suggest, that we take an ad out, because I bet you every single person sitting here have been approached on multiple occasions, or up there, have been approached by people in the community say, you know, I'd like to get involved. What boards are open? And I don't have a clue what boards are open at what particular point in time. So just following up on what Councilor Laurie said, I think it may make some sense to take an ad out and be specific, not just, look, we're looking for volunteers, or we're looking for people to participate. And with the new software, we can probably, we're able to track, look, this appointment, that appointment on this board and that, and put an ad in the paper, look, we're looking for volunteers for these commissions, for these boards, you know, whether it's, you know, all the way from Hunger Homeless to Taxi Cab Commission, and people, I believe, will respond if we let them know what's available and what they're qualified for, rather than you just getting, you know, 50 resumes and saying, okay, well, what are you interested in doing? So I think it's an idea worth looking into and posting it on our website, that, you know, this is coming up in the next year, or these terms have expired, so I think might make some sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, who in City Hall is keeping track of all the boards and commissions and the people that have recently been reappointed? Is there someone keeping that data together?
We actually have multiple people that keep that data together. The clerk's office keeps it, as well as the law department, and then we regularly go through it in my office with the assistance of the HR office.
So could we, as a council, have a list of all the boards and who's on those boards? And whoever updates the city website, if they could look a little bit closely, because I think the Board of Trustees for the auditorium has listed Jack Costello. He no longer is not only a board member, but he doesn't even live in the city anymore. So I think that would be
Thank you.
something to look at.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Laurie. Request the city manager have the proper department look into making Ludlam Street a one-way in its entirety. Seconded by Council Martin. Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This would really take Ludlam, I think, just from Aiken to Hildreth Street. I had an individual out there approach me and ask me about it. I got a call after I put the motion in that they thought it makes sense. And it's not a very wide street. People park on both sides. There's a lot of multi-families. And making it one way, which is pretty common in that area of Centerville, especially when you get on the other side of Hildreth Street. So it's just a request to look at it, keep parking on both sides of the street, just making it one way. And thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Laurie. Request the city manager have the proper department replace the no dogs allowed on playing fields signs where needed. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've talked to a couple of baseball coaches in the area, and I guess the signs are usually on the parks, no dogs allowed, but some of them are disappearing. And we're coming into that time of year where the fields will be used again by ball players. It's just asking we replace the signs so people know not to run their dogs on the baseball fields.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Leahy. Request the city manager provide an update regarding the construction on the Lowell Sun building in Kearney Square. Seconded by Council Kennedy. Council Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager, just if we could get an update on what's going on with that. That staging's been up for quite a while. I understand that it goes down Merrimack Street maybe another 20 feet for safety reasons, but it is blocking another business's doorway, which I'm sure they'd be appreciative as soon as that staging comes down. Would you have anything you could let us know right now, or do you need to talk to somebody about that?
I know that there's issues that they're lining up their financing, and that's been an ongoing issue with them, but we'll get you a full report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Last motion by Council Elliott. Request the city manager provide an interim plan on answering non-fire calls until the private firm is in place. Seconded by Council Kennedy. Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, this is just a follow-up. I know we had a discussion on the status of the non-fire signals, and I know that contract isn't going to be put in place for a while, right? Was it May? What is the plan in between for those signals? Who's going to answer them? Because I know the dispatchers raised this issue initially, and they were just overwhelmed. So I'm concerned what's going to take place between the time the contract kicks in or the whole system is implemented.
We'll be happy to get your report on that, Councilor.
Okay.
To show how it matches up to what's taking place in the past and what's happening now.
So what is happening now? They're just not being answered, right? All of them?
they're ringing into the dispatch, and they're doing some checking on them, I believe, but essentially it's the same system, it's the same process that, we're at the same status that we were when we had the Gamewell system, that fire alarms ring in and are responded to. Gamewell didn't give us any other signals. These give us a signal of, non-emergency issues that come up with the alarm system. So we're essentially at the same place we have been in the past, but we'll put all that in a full report for you.
Can we get a copy of that contract too? Was it signed yet
With
with the company that's going to?
East Coast, I believe, is that, we'll check on that.
All right. I'd appreciate a copy as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Motion to adjourn by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, we stand adjourned. Thank you.